Good afternoon, all of you. So we are going to discuss radius bone today. So we have already finished humerus, scapula, and clavicle. Three bones are done. But when you just look at this forearm, we have two bones in forearm, and this is the correct anatomical position of the body, which is shown here. Towards the little finger, the area is medial, and towards the thumb, the area is lateral. So as you can see from this picture, radius is the lateral bone in our forearm. Here this picture still further clarifies, like in the arm we have only one bone, that is humerus, and in the forearm we have two bones, one is the radius and the other is ulna. Radius is lateral bone and ulna is medial bone. Now to just check the features of radius, what are the various things we have? It has head, immediately below the head we have neck. So as we move below the upper end, like of course it is a long bone, like any other long bone, it also has upper end, shaft, and then we have lower end. Okay, so the upper end is showing head, neck, okay, and then as you move, this is completely shaft and in the lower end. Now, now at the junction of this head, neck, and also the shaft, you are finding there is one rounded elevation, that is radial tuberosity. We know radius is lateral bone. That's the reason radial tuberosity is facing on medial side. Then, now if you observe, like there is one oblique line in its anterior aspect, and of course this is the anterior surface of the radius. We are trying to figure it out for you. And then you are finding there is an opening also here. You call it as nutrient foramen for the passage of nutrient artery. Always the bones will have some like prominences and roughened surfaces for the attachment of certain muscles, and here in the mid of the shaft of the radius we are finding there is a bony elevation for the attachment of pronator teres. Okay, we will elaborate everything. Now coming to this is the lower end of the radius, which will have five surfaces. The surface what you see from front is anterior, the one which you see from behind is posterior. Then we have near the midline is medial surface, near the away from midline is lateral surface, and the surface which is lower down is inferior surface. And of course we have certain borders also. So what are the various borders we have? So we have one border which is seen from the anterior aspect, you call it as anterior border. Then the other border we have is moving from the medial side, that is the medial border. Okay, and then we have one more border which we will be seeing from behind, that will be the posterior border. Okay, so like that we have anterior, this is anterior in the midline. Okay, then we have of course the medial border which is towards the midline of our body, and then we have posterior border. Now then we have the various surfaces also from the front. If you observe, we have anterior surface, and that will be actually between the medial and the anterior border, the anterior surface. Okay, then between the anterior border and the posterior border we have the lateral surface. Behind, you will see, like if you observe, like between the medial and lateral borders, this is the medial border which is also interosseous border, and this is the lateral border. So that is between this, like between the medial and posterior border, whatever surface you find here is the posterior surface. Okay, that is. So how many borders and how many surfaces we have? We have three borders. Okay, that is the anterior border in the midline, medial border we have, and then we have behind we have is the posterior border. And the surfaces are three. Okay, what are those? Anterior surface, okay, between like medial border and anterior border we have anterior surface. Okay, then we have lateral surface. See, lateral surface is between the posterior border and also the like this area, that almost it is like if you just turn around, like again you will have anterior border only. So this whole surface is the anterior surface, and then this is posterior surface between the medial border and the posterior border. Okay, that is. So apart from that, we also should know the muscle attachments. So what are the muscle attachments? Like this is the head of the radius bone. The head of the radius bone is actually articulating here in the radial notch of the ulnar bone to form superior radio-ulnar joint. Apart from that, if you remember, I talked about humerus. In the humerus, we have certain foci. On the lateral aspect, above the we have radial fossa, isn't it? Above the capitulum, we have the radial fossa for the head of the radius to articulate over there. Okay, so this is radial head, and this is radial tuberosity. We know that. Okay, and the radial tuberosity is giving attachment to biceps brachii. I told you always the blue color is indicating insertion and red color is indicating origin. Okay. Now, actually the biceps brachii muscle is attached here, and you will see there is an area for the bursa also for the over this radial tuberosity. Apart from that, you are also observing there is insertion of one muscle, that is supinator. Okay. Then from that oblique line, what we have seen in the osteology bony component, you are finding one muscle is taking its origin, that is flexor digitorum superficialis. Okay. Then we are finding this border is medial border. Medial border is also called as interosseous border. From the medial border, we have a muscle called as flexor pollicis longus. Also from the corresponding, see the medial border of the radius and the lateral border of the ulna. Both are called as interosseous borders because both of them are participating in giving attachment to a membrane which is extending between two bones. You call it as interosseous membrane. Okay. So flexor pollicis longus muscle is taking its origin from this anterior surface. Okay, and you are finding it is also taking its origin from the corresponding interosseous membrane. Now, just now I told you, like there is one bony elevation for the attachment of muscle, rough area due to the attachment of pronator teres. You can see here the insertion of pronator teres. Okay. Basically, if you observe here, the origin of pronator teres is coming from ulna bone, which is the medial bone, and the insertion is coming to the mid shaft on the lateral surface of the radius bone. In the lower part of the radius, I told you we have 5 surfaces, and this surface what you are seeing is the anterior surface. You are finding there is one muscle getting inserted over here, that is pronator quadratus. Actually origin is from ulna and insertion is in radius. It is something like wristband type of muscle, okay, which helps in pronation as the name indicates. Of course, I have put few pictures to show you pronation, supination as we proceed. Okay, then we know like in the lower end, there is one muscle taking its insertion, that is brachioradialis in the anterior aspect. Okay, and this surface is the lateral surface. And the lower projection, whatever we are finding from the lower end of the radius, this point is called as styloid process. Styloid process. And if you observe the ulna bone also correspondingly, we have head in the lower end and there is this projection, nipple-like projection is styloid process. Both are named as styloid process. This is the styloid process of radius bone. This is the styloid process of ulna bone. If you observe, they are not in same line. In fact, the styloid process of radius is little lower in position when you compare with the styloid process of ulna. Okay. Then, if you further observe, at the upper end, one green line is shown, which shows the capsular attachment of which joint we have elbow joint. Similarly, lower side also you are finding some green line is shown, which shows the capsular attachment for the formation of wrist joint. Okay, that is. So now I will just try to open my video and show you the bones. I hope you understood to some extent. Let me show the bone now. Okay, let me focus the picture first. So, hi, good morning, all of you. So you can see here, I'll just close the PowerPoint to some extent so that you can see the bone more focused. See here. Now, first of all, any bone when you hold, you should know to which side it belongs to. Okay. So now see here, this is the bone which is belonging to the left side. Okay. So how did I identify it is belonging to left side? So this is radius bone. Okay. So it has upper end, it has shaft, and then it has lower end. So upper end is bearing a rounded head. That means when you hold the bone, if you get the bone with you, definitely you will not hold the bone like this, which is wrong. That means you should be very much clear, like upper end is rounded and it has a tuberosity. You call it as radial tuberosity. And I told you radial tuberosity is pointing medially towards the midline because radius is lateral bone. Then how come I have identified this as left bone? Now coming to the lower end, I told you lower end has 5 surfaces. Okay, the surface which is in front is anterior surface. The surface which is behind is posterior surface. And the surface which is below is inferior surface. And the surface which is towards the midline is medial surface. You can see it is articulating with ulna bone. So this is medial surface. Okay. And the surface which is away from midline is lateral surface. So overall lower end has how many? 5 surfaces. Let me revise. Anterior surface, behind, posterior surface, down, inferior surface. Then we have midline, medial surface, and laterally lateral surface. Okay, so this is one thing which will help you to identify. Moreover, if you closely observe, this anterior surface looks very much smooth, whereas posterior surface is showing one elevation. Okay, I'll also try to make use of chalk piece to highlight. So this elevation is actually called as dorsal tubercle of Lister or Lister's tubercle, which is seen only on posterior aspect. So that means if you consider this as head and if you are holding it Lister's tubercle in front is wrong, that means you have to keep in proper anatomical position. Okay, that means this belongs to left side. That means you hold only in the left hand, not in right hand. Okay, so let me revise fast. It has head, neck, radial tuberosity. Okay, the anterior end of the radial tuberosity is actually the whole of the radial tuberosity. Which muscle is coming and getting inserted here? Biceps brachii. Biceps brachii. So posteriorly you will see muscle insertion. Anteriorly we will have bursa of the same muscle. Biceps brachii. Okay, then whole thing is shaft. Again I will try to draw one line with this chalk piece if you can see. So this line is nothing but the oblique line. Oblique line. Okay. Then all of this thing is shaft and then we have lower end. Okay. Then now, so what are the various borders I said we have? First is anterior border. So anterior border you can trace from the lower part of the radial tuberosity. Almost you can take it to the styloid process. I told you this lower projection on the lateral side of the lower end of the radius is styloid process. This one is styloid process. So the anterior border is just moving like this. Okay, and the border which is close to our midline, which is sharp, I asked you to buy the bones, that will be very helpful. So this sharp border is medial border. Medial border is also called as interosseous border because it gives attachment to interosseous membrane, which is the membrane connecting between radius and ulna bones. Okay, so that's why it is moving towards midline. That's why this border is medial border. And behind whatever border we have, behind is the posterior border. Okay, so like that we have three borders. Okay, and the surfaces, like we have, one is anterior surface between the anterior and the medial border. This is anterior surface, this one. Okay, now between the, here we have the lateral surface, that means between the anterior and the posterior border. Here this is the anterior border, this is the posterior border. This surface becomes the lateral surface. Away from midline is the lateral surface, this is the anterior surface, and behind you have posterior surface. Okay, behind we have the posterior surface. This is the posterior surface. This bony prominence I told you is Lister's tubercle. Okay, so I hope you have some idea about the bone now. Now, if you observe here, there is one midline elevation. I told you these markings are produced because of the muscular attachment. So, which muscle is getting inserted here? Pronator teres. No, pronator teres. Okay, so that's what. Now, inferior aspect, actually you will be studying carpal bones as next class. So where you will have from lateral to medial, we have one scaphoid bone and then we have lunate bone. Actually scaphoid bone and lunate bone will be coming and articulating on the inferior aspect of the radius bone, and it takes part in the formation of wrist joint. Okay, so that's what you should understand. Then that's it. Wherever it is required, I will switch on the video, and meanwhile we'll continue with the video mode off. Now that's what, like most of the aspects I've already told you. Now we should just try to understand. So as we continue, so I told you many aspects now. Now just it is something like a reading part. Now, okay, if you want, I can still keep the video mode on. Okay. So you can see this is the lateral bone of the forearm, homologous to the medial bone of the leg, that is tibia. So it is a long bone. It has three parts. It has upper end, it has shaft, and then it has lower end. So upper end is presenting head, neck, and radial tuberosity. This is the radial tuberosity. Okay. So head is disc shaped and it is articulating. See, this is the humerus bone what we have. Okay, so what is this humerus bone showing us? Now see, it has head, anatomical neck, surgical neck, shaft, and this is the lower end. Okay, and this is also left humerus. So here, this area is capitulum, which is cap-like. Okay, this is the capitulum. So the head of the radius is coming and fixing in the capitulum like this. So suppose if it is flexed, it comes to lie in the radial fossa. Suppose if it is extended, you will see head of the radius is fixing in the capitulum like this. Okay, so that is. So head is disc shaped and it is articulating above with the capitulum of the humerus. Okay, this one head. Then, and of course, if you observe this head, it is covered with hyaline cartilage. So anything which is covered with cartilage, always remember it is taking part in the formation of joint. Okay, neck is the constricted area which is below. Then the radial tuberosity is this one. I told you many times, is just below the medial part of the neck. And then shaft, this whole thing is shaft, right? And it is showing lateral convexity. It widens rapidly towards the distal end and concave, and if you observe, it is concave anteriorly. Okay, you can appreciate better if you have bone with you. So, and the border which is sharp and which is towards the midline, you call it as interosseous border, which is located on medial side. Now coming to the lower end of the bone, I told you lower end is the widest part and it has 5 surfaces. Anterior surface, okay, posterior surface, and lateral surface is showing this downward projection, which is styloid process. Posterior surface is showing this bony elevation, which is Lister's tubercle. Okay. It is limited by a groove. Adjacent to this, we will have a groove. You call it as oblique groove. Okay. Then now coming to the other features like upper end, it is disc shaped, it is covered with hyaline cartilage, it articulates superiorly with the capitulum of the humerus to form humeroradial articulation. The circumference of the head is also smooth. Why? Because it is articulating with the radial notch on the ulnar bone to form superior radio-ulnar joint. Okay, superior radio-ulnar joint. That means two joints. One is between the humerus and radius humeroradial, and the other is between the ulna and the radius, that is the superior radio-ulnar joint. And the point where these two bones are meeting, there will be a ring-like ligament. What we wear in our fingers, ring-like ligament, you call it as annular ligament. Annular ligament. So after this is the neck area, which is constricted part just below the head. Okay. Then next here I will show you in the diagram there is one ligament which is actually taking part in the formation of the radio-ulnar joint. There is one ligament called as quadrate ligament which is attached along the medial side of the neck. Okay. Then this whole tuberosity is radial tuberosity. I told you biceps brachii muscle is getting inserted here on its posterior aspect, and anterior aspect you will see there is a bursa. Then I already told you like we have shaft with 3 borders. One is if you hold in proper anatomical position, we have anterior border, okay, which is starting below the anterolateral aspect of the radial tuberosity, runs downwards and it is moving towards the styloid process. Upper part of this border is oblique. Okay, and lower part as we scroll on, it is becoming little sharp. So this anterior oblique line is giving origin to flexor digitorum superficialis muscle, which I have shown you previously also. This one, flexor, this oblique line, it is giving origin to flexor digitorum superficialis. Then the one which is behind is the posterior border. Okay, it is well defined only in the middle one third, whereas up and below it is little smooth, not so sharp. Okay, then like its upward extension, it is usually called as a posterior oblique line. Then medial border is the sharpest among all the 3, and I told you the medial border is called interosseous border. This is the medial border. Okay, extending from the radial tuberosity and it is just going downwards and it is going to the medial aspect of lower end of the medial aspect of the radius bone, that is the lower end. Okay, so this medial border is coming continuously and it is seen on the posterior margin of this triangular area of the lower end of the bone. What is the purpose of this medial side triangular area? The head of the ulna comes and fixes in the area, in the lower part of the radius. 5 surfaces are there, right? So this is the medial side of the radius. So the medial side of the radius is articulating with the head of the ulnar bone to form inferior radio-ulnar joint. The joint between the medial aspect of the lower end of the radius and the head of the ulna is nothing but inferior radio-ulnar joint. Okay, it is medial border, and then we have surfaces. The front is anterior surface, concave lies between anterior and interosseous border. This is the anterior surface. So which muscle are you finding from the picture here? Flexor pollicis longus. Okay, and lower down it is actually receiving the insertion of pronator quadratus. And of course nutrient foramen is here, which is allowing the passage of nutrient artery, and the branch here, nutrient artery is a branch of anterior interosseous artery, which in turn will be a branch of ulnar artery. Okay, then now posterior surface, I told you it is present between the interosseous and the posterior borders. So posterior surface, it is giving origin to other some more muscles. What are those you are finding here? Abductor pollicis longus. We are also finding extensor pollicis brevis. Okay, so abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis. So this is our radius bone. Okay, the lateral surface, what is the muscle which is taking its insertion here? Let me move this window little above. So what muscle are we finding here? Insertion of supinator. Okay, in its wide upper 1/3 surface. Then we have the insertion of pronator teres, because of which we have roughened area in the bone also, this one. Okay, the most convex middle part of this surface. So you can see this is the lower end, anterior aspect of the lower end of the radius. It has anterior surface, lateral surface projecting a styloid process, isn't it? Then it has inferior surface. Then it has medial surface articulating with the head of the ulna bone to form inferior radioulnar joint, and this is posterior surface. There will be a sharp elevation which is called as what? Lister's tubercle or tubercle of Lister. Here also you can see dorsal tubercle of Lister, or simply you can also use the word dorsal tubercle. Okay. This is the lateral end which is styloid process. This is the inferior end. I told you it articulates with scaphoid and lunate bone, inferior side. Okay, why it has to articulate with scaphoid and lunate bone? In order to form which joint? Wrist joint. Okay. So that is now again whatever I have been discussing is written over here. Lower end is widest part of the bone. Anterior surface is actually bearing a thick ridge for the attachment of the ligaments of wrist joint. That is palmar radiocarpal ligament. Posterior surface is bearing a tubercle. What is the name of this tubercle? Dorsal tubercle of Lister. Okay, so lateral to the groove for the tendon of, like, of course, see here in the forearm, front of the forearm you will have flexor muscles, back of the forearm we will have extensor muscles. Now lower end of the radius has Lister's tubercle. That means posterior aspect of this radius you will find all extensor tendons. So which tendon is passing from here? The tendon of extensor pollicis longus. Okay, you can see how it is making. So the groove is found medially, and you can see it is moving from medial to lateral direction. Wherever you find styloid process, that is lateral. Okay, the groove lateral to Lister's tubercle, here it is traversed by the other extensor muscles which you will be studying. So those are extensor carpi. All extensors are here. Extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis. Okay, so that is initially. First, what did we find? Extensor pollicis longus. That is. Apart from that, we also find the tendons for other extensor muscles like extensor digitorum and extensor indicis. You will learn all these muscles when we do muscles of the forearm. Now just I am introducing the names of muscles. So you need not worry, so much is being taught. So many times the like words will be repeated in many other topics of our lectures as well. Okay. So lower end of the radius, medial side, I told you there is a triangular area. What for is this triangular area? You can see this is the medial side. You have this triangular area, and you are finding again an articular cartilage here for the purpose of the head of the ulna bone. This is the lower end of the ulna where it is showing you the head. So head of the ulna comes and articulates over here to form inferior radioulnar joint. Okay, that is. And anteriorly it is comparatively little concave and smooth, laterally projecting downwards like styloid process, posteriorly bearing clistus tubercle, isn't it? And you have the passage of all extensor tendons, extensor digitorum longus, extensor carpi radialis longus, brevis, indicis, and digitorum. You will learn all these names very easy. As you proceed, you will learn more. Inferior aspect, you have like these are the articular surface. Again, it is covered with hyaline cartilage because it is articulating with two bones. Towards styloid process is lateral. So here you will have scaphoid and this side you will have lunate. This is scaphoid and this is lunate. Okay. Mm. So that is the medial end, like lower end of the radius, medial surface presents ulnar notch for the articulation with the head of the ulna. Okay, you will find there will be one articular disc, the details of which will be again taught in detail when we are doing this joint. Okay, the lateral side is projecting downwards, no, to form styloid process, and it is related to the tendons of adductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis and brachioradialis. Okay. Rest of these ligaments will be taught again, like radial collateral ligament also is attached here, which takes part in the formation of wrist joint. Then inferior surface, I told you, it has lateral triangular area for scaphoid bone and medial quadrangular area for the articulation of lunate bone. SL, you remember like this. S for scaphoid, L for lunate. That is from lateral to medial side. Okay. Scaphoid and lunate are the carpal bones. Now, after knowing the muscle attachments, borders, surfaces, and ends, now let us see certain clinical aspects of this bone. So, what are the various clinical aspects we have? See, radius, fracture of radius is because we know like radius is weight bearing bone. Suppose if the person is falling again with outstretched hand where palm is extended, there the risk of radius getting fracture is more common than ulna. See here, if you observe this is the lower end of the bone. We know like this is the styloid process coming from radius, this is the styloid process coming from ulna. Because it is projecting more downwards, so it has a risk of getting fractured more than the ulna bone. Okay, then so the fracture of the shaft of the radius with fracture line below the insertion of biceps, above the insertion of pronator teres is also quite common. Okay, then fracture of the distal end, you can see here, this is Colles fracture, very very important. This may itself come as a 3 marks question. So fracture at the distal end of the radius, that is Colles fracture, distal fragment is displaced backwards and upwards. Okay, and reverse of this fracture is Smith's fracture. Now, there is one more condition where you are finding the styloid process of the radius is fractured. You call it as Schaffer's fracture. Okay, so radius is more commonly fractured in people over 50 years of age because of osteoporosis. Okay, and the fall is usually when the person is falling on outstretched hand. Okay, now after this, let's come to the ossification part. The radius ossifies from 3 ossification centers, 1 primary and 2 secondary ossification centers. We know primary ossification center appears during intrauterine life, that is 8th week. 2 secondary centers are appearing, one for each end. Okay, center for lower end is appearing at the age of first year. Okay, this is at first year itself you are finding this ossification center appears. Okay, then center for upper end, like the secondary center, it appears at around 5th year. Then the upper epiphysis fuses at the age of around 12 years and the lower epiphysis fuses at the age of 20 years. Okay, so that means which part of the bone is the growing end of the bone? Lower end, because it is going and meeting with the shaft, that is the diaphysis, at later age. Then there is one condition which is called as Madelung deformity. It's a congenital anomaly of radius which presents like anterior bowing of distal end of radius. Okay, you can see this is the like a radius bone and it is bowing. It's not straight, right? Okay. due to abnormal growth of distal epiphysis. It occurs between 10 to 14 years of age. Okay, there is premature disappearance of distal epiphyseal line, and there may be subluxation or dislocation of distal end of ulna due to defective development of distal radial epiphysis. Colles and Smith's fracture I have repeated because these may itself be short note. The radius is commonly fractured just about 2 centimeters at its lower end. This is the first picture is showing you the Colles fracture, and second picture is showing you the Smith's fracture. Okay, so in case of Colles fracture, you are finding fracture is caused, of course, when the person is falling with outstretched hand, and the distal fragment you can see here is the distal fragment, it is displaced posteriorly. The displaced fragment is like if the distal fragment is displaced anteriorly, then you call it as Smith's fracture. Okay. So this posterior type of dislocation looks as though it is our fork what we use like for noodles and all. Okay, that's why this Colles fracture is also called as dinner fork deformity. Okay, dinner fork deformity, where you are finding the distal fragment is displaced posteriorly. Okay, this is the bone, suppose if it is radius and this is fractured and it has moved like behind posteriorly. Okay, distal fragment is placed posteriorly. You call this deformity as dinner forks deformity. Patient will be seen like this. You can see this is the picture the patient presents with. You have to identify this condition as Colles fracture. Okay. So, and moreover, you will also see basically the lower end of this styloid process of the radius will be much lower when you compare with the styloid process of ulna. But in case of this Colles fracture, you will see it will be displaced more upwards than the styloid process of ulna. Okay, because of the backward or posterior displacement of the distal fragment, giving this inner fork type of deformity. And I told you head of the radius is actually fixed in the radial notch of the ulna bone to form superior radio ulnar joint. Then there I said we have a ligament which is called as annular ligament which is holding it in place. Suppose if this annular ligament is like fibers are broken because of abnormal pulling of elbow, then you will see head of the radius may be displaced from the radial notch of ulna. You call this condition as pulled elbow, pulled elbow. Sudden powerful jerk of the hand of the child may dislodge the head of the radius from the grip of annular ligament. This subluxation of head of the radius is nothing but pulled elbow. Okay, this can be felt actually behind the lateral epicondyle of humerus. I hope you understood. Thank you.